Every new discovery we make about the people who lived thousands of years before us seems to push their capabilities further beyond what we once believed possible. History books have repeatedly sold them short, only for another spectacular find to reveal knowledge, skill, and ingenuity that appear centuries ahead of their time. From objects so ancient they challenge accepted timelines to mysterious structures built in absolute harmony with the skies, here are 15 ancient discoveries that forced us to rethink what we know about the ancient world. Number 15. The Kilwa coins of Australia. How does a medieval African coin end up thousands of miles away on an Australian island? That question has followed some coins tied to the Wessel Islands in the Northern Territory for decades. Several were identified as coming from Kilwa, a powerful trading city on the coast of what is now Tanzania. They date centuries before the first documented European landings in Australia. Well, that doesn't mean African sailors reached the continent during medieval times, but it certainly gives historians an awkward little puzzle. 5 coins were reportedly found by serviceman Maury Eisenberg in 1944, while another Kilwa coin later came to attention from nearby Elcho Island. Perhaps sailors carried them through Indian Ocean trade networks before they eventually reached Australia. They could also have arrived much later through collectors or wartime movement. No explanation has yet proved an early African voyage. Still, Kilwa traded across an astonishing distance, connecting East Africa with Arabia, Persia, and Asia. Somehow, its money traveled even far from farther, and nobody can confidently retrace the journey. Number 14. The Forbidden Book of Enoch. This book speaks of things that neither the Bible nor most familiar religious writings explain in quite the same way. The Book of Enoch tells of angels called Watchers who came down to earth, took human wives, and shared knowledge humanity was never meant to possess. Their children became the Nephilim, enormous beings whose violence helped bring ruin upon the world. Written in several sections over centuries, roughly between 300 BC and the 1st century BC, Enoch was widely known in ancient Jewish circles and even influenced early Christian thought. A passage from it is quoted in the New Testament's letter of Jude. Yet most Christian traditions eventually left Enoch outside their biblical canon, while the Ethiopian Orthodox Church preserved it as scripture. That difference has kept curiosity alive ever since. Was Enoch simply considered unreliable, or were its angels' heavenly journeys and disturbing revelations too difficult to accept? Whatever the reason, somehow, this strange book simply refused to vanish. Number 13. The ancient iridium death mask. There isn't as much information about pre-Inca Peruvian people as we have about the Maya, the Inca, or ancient Egypt, and that uncertainty makes strange claims about their past tempting. One object often presented online as a 12,000-year-old Peruvian death mask takes that mystery much further. The story says the mask was recovered in Florida and contains iridium, a metal associated with meteorites and scarce in Earth's crust. Its face is also said to resemble Viracocha, the great creator deity of the Andes. From there, the tale becomes even wilder. The mask supposedly reached Florida aboard a Spanish treasure ship before disappearing beneath the sea. It sounds like the sort of discovery that could rewrite American history. There is one serious problem, though. Reliable archaeological documentation for the mask is remarkably difficult to find, and the extraordinary 1200 BC date lacks credible support. So perhaps the greatest mystery is not who made it, but where this insanely incredible story actually began. Number 12. The Westray wife. She's barely larger than a person's thumb, but this tiny face gave Scotland something it had never seen before. The sandstone figurine came from Links of Noltland on the Orkney island of Westray in 2009 and dates back around 500 years. 2 dots form the eyes, heavy lines suggest eyebrows, and simple scratches across the body appear to show clothing or decoration. Nothing particularly fancy, yet it became the earliest known representation of a human face recovered in Scotland. People quickly nicknamed it the Westray wife, although even that may be wrong. Marks once interpreted as breasts could instead represent fasteners or parts of a garment, meaning the person depicted might not be female whatsoever. More small figures later appeared at the site, including one made from clay, suggesting this wasn't necessarily a one-off experiment. Were these toys personal keepsakes, ancestors, religious figures, or portraits of actual islanders? 5 millennia have taken away the answer. Whoever carved that little expression probably knew immediately who or what they were looking at. We don't. Number 11. The ruins beneath Fuxian Lake. Something strange has been sitting beneath China's Fuxian Lake for a very long time. Divers began bringing attention to the submerged ruins in the 1990s, and what they encountered down there was far more than a handful of scattered stones. Walls, paved sections, carved blocks, and large structures appeared across the lake bed, including one formation described as a stepped pyramid-like building. That last part is where the story gets tricky. Some accounts claim it rises around 70 feet and resembles ancient pyramids found elsewhere in the world. Others argue we're looking at the remains of a drowned settlement whose damaged architecture only happens to resemble one. Archaeological surveys have confirmed substantial man-made remains beneath Fuxian, but their age and identity remain debated. Local history offers several possible connections, including an ancient city once associated with the region. But the lake hasn't given enough to settle the argument. There is certainly a lost settlement down there. Whether it also contains China's mysterious underwater pyramid is another story. Number 10. The sun-driven cultural overhaul we all know: King Tut, King Seti, Queen Nefertiti, and the other famous names of ancient Egypt. But Akhenaten may have done something none of them dared to attempt: change Egypt itself. Around 3,300 years ago, he pushed aside the old religious order, elevated the sun disk Aten, and moved his royal court to a new capital at Amarna. Temples changed, royal art became unusually intimate, and even the pharaoh's appearance was shown in a style Egyptians had never seen before. One fascinating theory connects this revolution with the sky above him. Scholar Donald Redford noted that Akhenaten's unusual artistic program emerged around 1351 BCE, a year associated by some researchers with a solar eclipse visible in southern Egypt. Could an eclipse have strengthened his obsession with Aten? We cannot prove it, but the possibility feels strangely fitting. Akhenaten spent his reign reshaping Egypt around the sun, only for later rulers to erase much of what he had changed. But what is your wild theory about it? Number 9. The Sundarbans artifacts. Biswajit Sahu wasn't leading an excavation when pieces of the Sundarbans' forgotten past began reaching his hands. He was a fisherman, regularly moving through the waterways of this enormous mangrove region between India and Bangladesh. Over time, he collected terracotta objects, pottery fragments, beads, figurines, and religious pieces encountered around the area. Eventually, archaeologists examined the collection, and its age caused a surprise. Several items were linked to periods roughly 2,000 years ago or earlier, suggesting people were active in parts of the Sundarban centuries before older historical accounts had comfortably allowed. That matters because reconstructing life here has never been easy. Rivers shift, coastlines change, tides swallow land, and the mangrove environment can erase settlements remarkably well. Colonial-era histories therefore offered only a thin picture of the region's deeper past. Sahu's collection added another chapter almost by accident. Somewhere among those waterways, communities were trading, worshipping, and leaving objects behind long before the surviving maps remembered them. A fisherman simply helped bring their story back. It's insane, isn't it? Number 8. The mysterious Viking runestone. For as long as humans have lived on Earth, they have spoken about disasters. From floods that swallowed entire lands to skies that seemed to announce the end of everything. Vikings were no different. In Sweden, the Ark runestone carries more than 700 runes carved during the 9th century, and researchers now believe parts of its message may reflect a deep fear of another climate disaster. Scandinavia had already suffered terribly after the events beginning in 536 C, when volcanic dust dimmed sunlight, temperatures dropped, and harvests failed. Generations later, memories of that nightmare may still have haunted Norse society. A modern interpretation of the inscription finds references to battles involving light, darkness, and the sun, possibly connecting natural events with fears surrounding Ragnarok. Varan, who commissioned the monument for his dead son, apparently filled it with riddles and heroic memories. Was he merely honoring someone he loved, or preserving an old warning? Well, the answers only Vikings know. Number 7. The Swash Channel shipwreck. A 30-foot wooden warrior is a strange thing to find attached to a ship. But that was the surprise waiting off the coast of Dorset, England, where divers investigating the Swash Channel wreck recovered an enormous carved rudder in 2013. Its surface carried the figure of a mustached man turning an ordinary piece of steering equipment into something closer to a floating sculpture. At first, nobody could even say which vessel it belonged to. The wreck had rested near Poole Harbor for centuries with its name forgotten. Research later connected it with a 17th-century Dutch merchant ship, commonly identified as the Fame, lost during a storm in 1631 while heading toward Poole. Raising the entire wreck would risk destroying its fragile timbers, so much of it remains underwater beneath protective layers of sand. The remarkable rudder was saved separately for conservation. Whoever ordered that huge warrior carved into the vessel probably expected people to notice him. Nearly 4 centuries later, they finally did. Number 6. The Buddha head. It's still a riddle how a Buddha head ended up between the roots of a tree at Wat Mahathat, but that unanswered question is part of what makes it so unforgettable. Ayutthaya was once among Southeast Asia's greatest cities, filled with temples, monasteries, palaces, and countless images of the Buddha. Then came 1767. Burmese forces captured the capital, leaving enormous destruction behind, and numerous statues across the ruined religious sites lost their heads. At some point afterward, this stone face was left beside a tree. Nobody knows who put it there or whether anyone intended it to remain. What happened next took generations. As the tree grew, its roots gradually curled around the head without covering the peaceful face until stone and wood seemed almost inseparable. There are stories that someone placed it there for protection, but no firm evidence settles the matter. Somehow, a piece of a devastated city became its most recognizable survivor, and nature finished the monument that history had abandoned. Number 5. Tower of David inscription. Jerusalem has been conquered, rebuilt, expanded, and fought over so many times that even its walls can confuse historians. The Tower of David is a perfect example. For years, part of the citadel's outer fortifications was believed to have been the work of crusaders during the 12th century. Then archaeologists encountered an Arabic inscription that complicated the story. The reused stone carries the name of al-Malik al-Muazzam Isa, Saladin's nephew, who controlled Jerusalem during the early 19th century and strengthened its defenses. That single name points toward an Islamic construction phase rather than the Crusader origin previously suggested for this section. Making matters more complicated, the block later ended up incorporated into an Ottoman canon platform, meaning the same piece survived several totally different chapters of Jerusalem's past. Archaeology occasionally changes history with an enormous discovery. Here, something much smaller did the damage. So, as we say, history is not as neat as we know. Number 4. Stone Sentinels of Central Sulawesi Bata Valley is the kind of place where history seems to have left behind a puzzle and forgotten to leave the answer. Across this remote part of central Sulawesi, enormous stone figures rise among rice fields, while others wait beside forest paths or lean beneath centuries of weather. Nobody can say with certainty who carved them. Even their original purpose remains unclear. The best known is Palindo, a towering human-shaped figure with an oversized head, enormous eyes, and hands resting strangely across its body. Elsewhere are smaller statues and huge stone containers called kalambas, adding another unanswered question to the valley. Archaeologists have proposed dates ranging widely across the region's past, and theories connect the stones with burial customs, ancestor worship, or communities involved in ancient trade networks. But no surviving written record tells their story. That silence still puzzles experts. Number 3. The Tiger and Dragon Burial Well. Now, it's not a burial of a tiger or a dragon, although the name might make you expect both. The surprise waiting inside this roughly 6,000-year-old Chinese grave is considerably more unusual. Archaeologists excavating at Shishuipo in Puyang uncovered a human skeleton accompanied by 2 carefully arranged animal shapes made from clam shells. A dragon rests on one side of the body and a tiger on the other, each positioned with remarkable care. Nothing about that arrangement feels accidental. These creatures later became enormously important within Chinese culture, although connecting this prehistoric grave directly with much later ideas such as yin and yang goes further than the evidence allows. What researchers can say is that whoever prepared this burial devoted serious effort to its symbolism. Perhaps the animals represented spiritual protection, direction, stars, status, or beliefs we no longer understand. 6 millennia have passed, yet the scene still looks deliberate enough to make us wonder what message everyone back then would have understood immediately. Now, let's end this with Number 2. The Lingwulong fossils. For years, paleontologists thought one major branch of giant long-necked dinosaurs appeared much later than it did. Then a fossil site in northwestern China pushed that entire timeline backward. The bones belonged to Lingwulong shenqi, a sauropod relative that lived roughly 174 million years ago, about 15 million years earlier than researchers expected animals like it to exist. That alone forced a serious rethink of dinosaur evolution. The site also produced remains from several individuals, suggesting these animals may have moved together in groups, much like later sauropods. Even more surprising was where they were found. Fossils from this branch had not been expected in East Asia at such an early date, raising fresh questions about how connected the continents were during the Jurassic. One discovery managed to upset both the timing and geography experts had relied on for years. And that is the uncomfortable thing about fossils. Number 1. The crowns of Silla. Ancient rulers were shy about showing their wealth, but the kings of Silla took royal splendor somewhere rare. Their gold crowns, recovered from enormous tombs around Gyeongju in South Korea, look almost too delicate to have survived 15 centuries underground. Among the finest examples is the crown associated with Gyeomgwancheong, appropriately known as the Gold Crown Tomb. Its tall golden branches resemble trees or antlers, while curved jade ornaments and dangling pieces of gold would have shimmered whenever light touched them. Yet beauty is only half the fascination. Scholars still debate what these unusual shapes represented and whether such crowns were actually worn during ceremonies or made primarily for burial. Their design also reveals influences and connections stretching far beyond the Korean peninsula, reminding us that Silla was hardly isolated from the wider ancient world. Whatever their precise meaning, whoever entered those royal tombs centuries ago understood something we have partly lost. So, what's your take on these ancient discoveries? Drop your comments below. And be sure to like this video and subscribe. We'll see you soon in the next one.